Your passcode has been revoked by the property administrator, Mom. Try not to cause a scene on the sidewalk. My keyless deadbolt beeped twice, flashed a harsh red light, and locked me out of the 4-bedroom craftsman home I had built with my own hands. My 31-year-old daughter, Chloe, didn't even open the heavy oak door. She spoke through the smart doorbell camera, her voice digitized and cold. I was 63 years old. I stood on the porch in the freezing October rain, holding a plastic grocery bag containing my daily blood pressure medication and a single loaf of bread. "Chloe, please," I begged, my voice cracking as rain streamed down my neck. "My coat is inside. My purse is inside. You said we were just updating the tax records on the county website." A sleek white SUV pulled into my driveway behind my old station wagon. A tall man in a dark tailored trench coat stepped out, holding a large blue clipboard. It was Julian Vance, a private real estate developer who had been trying to buy my street's waterfront lots for 3 years. "She's not coming to the door, Martha," Julian said, his polished dress shoes clicking against my wet stone steps. "The title transfer was recorded at the county courthouse at 4 o'clock today. Chloe is officially the sole managing trustee of the Vance family estate." My stomach dropped into an abyss. "That's impossible! I only signed a secondary authorization form for the tax exemption." Julian smiled, a slow, predatory turn of his lips. He held out his clipboard, showing me a glossy printout of a digital land registry document. "If you want to hear more raw, emotional life confessions from people who survived the deepest family betrayals, please take 5 seconds to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us keep sharing these true stories." "Take a closer look at line 42, Martha," Julian whispered, leaning closer so his umbrella covered us both. "You didn't sign a tax exemption. You signed an irrevocable quitclaim deed transferring fee simple ownership to Chloe." My hand trembled as I touched the cold paper. But then my eyes caught the small, faint stamp on the bottom right corner of the 3rd page, a seal Julian clearly hadn't noticed. The tiny embossed seal bore the initials EV 1991, surrounded by a ring of Latin text. It was an ancient notary seal from my late husband Edward, who had passed away 12 years ago. "Who notarized this deed, Julian?" I asked, my voice suddenly dropping its desperate tremor. Julian said, sliding the paper back into his folder, "Brenda is a certified county clerk. She signed it because I paid her fee." "Brenda Miller died 8 years ago in Chicago, Chloe," I said quietly. Chloe froze. The color instantly drained from her face. She looked at Julian, then back at me, her chest heaving as panic flared in her eyes. What are you talking about?" Chloe stammered. "You didn't read the archival annexed attached to the back of the land grant, did you?" I asked, pulling my winter coat over my shivering shoulders. "You just grabbed the blue folder from my locked steel desk drawer." Julian's calm expression cracked. He grabbed Chloe's arm. "Chloe, what folder did you take from her desk?" The main land folder," Chloe panicked, her voice rising to a shriek. "The one labeled 1991 Foundation Charter. You told me that was the original deed." "It was the charter, Chloe," I said, pulling my car keys out of my handbag. "My father didn't build this house as a private dwelling. He built it as a municipal trust for the town's historical wetland sanctuary." Julian spun around to face me, his umbrella tilting as rain splashed across his tailored coat. "That's absurd. The county zoning map lists this parcel as residential Zone A. I verified it myself 3 weeks ago." "You verified the surface tax assessment, Julian," I said, stepping off the porch toward my old station wagon. "You didn't verify the deed's restrictive covenant. My father added a life estate reversion clause 40 years ago. If anyone ever attempts to sell or subdivide this land for commercial construction, the ownership doesn't transfer to the buyer." "Who does it transfer to?" Julian demanded, taking 2 fast steps down the stairs toward me. "Look at page 7 of the annex in that folder, Julian," I said, opening my car door. "The full title instantly reverts to a second beneficiary, a person whose name Chloe has spent her entire life trying to forget." I slammed the car door shut, shifted into drive, and pulled out of the driveway into the stormy night, leaving Julian and my daughter screaming at each other on the lit porch. I drove straight to a small 2-story brick row house on the east side of town. The front porch light was on, illuminating an old wooden sign hanging near the door. "Hargrove and Associates, Private Probate Investigations." I knocked 3 times on the glass panel of the front door. A moment later, the door was pulled open by an elderly man with thick silver hair and a wool cardigan. It was Thomas Hargrove, my late husband's former law partner, a man I hadn't spoken to in over 20 years. "Martha," Thomas gasped, dropping his reading glasses onto his chest. "Good Lord, woman, you're soaked to the bone. What happened?" "Chloe signed the quitclaim deed, Thomas," I said, stepping into his warm hallway, my wet shoes leaving dark prints on his hardwood floor. "She brought Julian Vance to the house tonight. They think they're demolishing the property on Thursday." Thomas took my coat, his face hardening into a look of deep, ancient fury. "That foolish girl. She really did it? She actually fell for Vance's land grab scheme?" "She forged Brenda Miller's notary stamp from the 1990s files. She thought she was so clever, Thomas. She thought she was taking back what she believed was taken from her." Thomas walked over to a heavy brass safe sitting in the corner of his study. He dialed a 6-digit combination, pulled open the thick metal door, and retrieved a rusted steel strongbox wrapped in heavy brown paper. "She doesn't know about the second child, does she, Martha?" Thomas asked softly, setting the box down on the coffee table between us. My breath hitched in my throat. The room grew so quiet I could hear the rain tapping against the window panes. "No," I whispered, tears finally overflowing my eyes. "I kept that promise to Edward for 30 years. Chloe thinks she was an only child. She thinks I gave all my affection to Edward's memory while holding her back." "The 30-year secrecy clause expired last month, Martha," Thomas said, handing me a small silver key attached to a leather strap. "It's time to open Edward's vault style. If Julian Vance brings heavy machinery to that wetland on Thursday, he's not just violating a covenant, he's destroying the evidence of a federal crime committed in 1994. My hands shook so violently I could barely fit the silver key into the strongbox's keyhole. The latch popped open with a dry metallic click. Inside lay a bundle of faded black and white photographs, a certified adoption decree from Cook County, Illinois, and a small gold-plated heart pendant with a broken chain. I picked up the top photograph. It showed my late husband, Edward, standing outside a red brick hospital building holding a newborn baby wrapped in a pink blanket. Standing right beside him was a young woman with light brown hair and a wide, radiant smile. The woman wasn't me. "Her name was Sarah," Thomas said quietly, pouring 2 glasses of warm tea. "She was Edward's first daughter from a secret marriage he had in Chicago before he ever met you, Martha. When Sarah passed away during childbirth in 1994, Edward brought the child home, but he was terrified of what it would do to his reputation and his legal practice. So he put her in a private foster home in Michigan," I said, my voice choking with 30 years of buried grief. And he made me swear never to tell Chloe he used the land trust to secure the girl's financial future. And that girl's name, Thomas said, pointing to the adoption decree on the table, is Maya Vance. She's 32 years old now, and underline 42 of your father's deed covenant. If any unauthorized sale of the land is attempted, the entire $4 million property title instantly vests in Maya's name. Suddenly, headlights flashed through Thomas's study blinds. A high-pitched screech of tires echoed from the street outside. I stood up and looked through the wooden blinds. Julian Vance's white SUV had parked illegally on Thomas's lawn. Julian jumped out of the driver's side, running toward the front porch while furiously typing on his phone. Beside him, looking completely hysterical, was Chloe. Thomas opened the front door before Julian could even raise his fist to knock. "Get off my property, Vance," Thomas barked, stepping onto the porch with a cold authority that made Julian halt in his tracks. "I don't care about your probate office, Hargrove," Julian shouted, holding up a stack of legal papers. "I just got off the phone with my title insurance company. They said there's a lis pendens lien filed against the Vance parcel. Who filed a lis pendens on my deal?" "I did, Julian." A calm, clear voice spoke from the shadows of the hallway behind me. A tall, dark-haired woman in a navy trench coat stepped out onto the porch light next to Thomas. She had high cheekbones, dark, expressive eyes, and a quiet confidence that filled the space. When Chloe looked at the woman's face, she stopped dead in her tracks. Her jaw dropped open. She looked from the stranger to me, her eyes darting back and forth in absolute confusion. Who are you?" Chloe asked, her voice small and trembling. "My name is Maya," Maya said, holding out a certified copy of her birth certificate and the 1991 Foundation Charter Annex. "I'm your older sister, Chloe, and as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, when you filed that fraudulent quitclaim deed at the courthouse, you officially triggered the reversion clause." "Sister?" Chloe screamed, her face twisting in pure rage and horror. "Mother, what is she talking about? You never had another child. She's a fake. She's trying to steal my inheritance." "She's not stealing anything, Chloe," I said, stepping onto the porch to stand beside Maya. "Your father created this structure 30 years ago to make sure both of his daughters were protected if anything ever happened to me. I spent 30 years protecting you from this truth because I didn't want you to feel second best, but you let greed drive you to lock your own mother out in the freezing rain." Julian's face turned gray as he looked down at Maya's documents. "The covenant, it's a primary reversion trust. The quitclaim deed Chloe signed doesn't transfer the house to my firm. It invalidates the residential title entirely and transfers total control to the secondary heir." "Which means," Maya said, looking Julian directly in his eyes, "your earnest money check of $500,000 that you transferred to Chloe's personal account this afternoon was paid for a title she didn't legally possess."
"What?" shrieked Chloe, spinning on Julian. "You said the wire was clear. You said I owned the house." "You signed a warranty deed guaranteeing clear title, Chloe," Julian yelled back, his composure completely shattered. "If the title is void, my firm's legal team will file criminal charges for grand larceny and felony fraud against you by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning." "Julian, please," Chloe panicked, grabbing his sleeve. "We can fix this. We can make a deal with her." Julian shoved her hand off his arm with utter disgust. "There is no deal. You gave me a forged deed signed by a dead notary. My company is pulling out of this project tonight." Julian turned around, jumped into his SUV, and sped down the street, leaving his tires burning rubber against the wet asphalt. Chloe stood alone on the wet lawn, rain soaking through her thin designer sweater. She looked at me, then at Maya, then down at her hands, trembling violently. "Mom," sobbed Chloe, taking a slow step toward the porch steps. "Mom, please, I didn't know about the covenant. I was so deep in debt from my Los Angeles investments. I thought you were just withholding the estate from me out of spite. Please tell Julian's lawyers not to press charges." I looked down at my daughter, the baby I had rocked to sleep, the girl I had shielded from the painful truths of her father's double life. I felt no anger left in my heart, only a quiet, heavy sorrow. "I won't lie for you anymore, Chloe," I said softly. "You have to face the consequences of what you signed. The house belongs to the trust now, managed by Maya and Thomas. You have 24 hours to pack your personal belongings and leave the property." "Mom," Chloe wailed, falling to her knees on the wet grass. "I can't do this to me. I'm your daughter." "I am doing this for you, Chloe, because until you learn that people are worth more than land and money, you will never be free." 6 months later, the sun rose over a quiet, peaceful morning on the waterfront lot. The demolition crew never came. Instead, a team of local conservationists worked quietly along the edge of the property, installing small wooden signs that read, "Edward and Sarah Vance Memorial Wetland Reserve." The old craftsman house remained standing, its heavy oak door painted a warm, welcoming red. The digital smart lock was removed, replaced by an old-fashioned brass lock and key. Maya moved into the second-floor suite, setting up her private photography studio overlooking the marshland. We spend our mornings on the back porch, drinking coffee and watching the blue herons glide over the water. Chloe avoided prison time by entering a court-mandated diversion program for real estate fraud, agreeing to full restitution terms to clear Julian Vance's corporate claim. She lives now in a modest apartment 2 hours inland, working as an entry-level clerk at an insurance company. She calls me once a month on Sunday evenings. We don't talk about land, deeds, or money anymore. We talk about simple things, the weather, her job, and the small garden she started on her balcony. Yesterday, I sat on my front porch in the warm spring sunshine, holding the old brass key to my front door in my hand. I lost the simple life I thought I knew, and I had to face the painful shadows of my husband's past. But as I look out over the clear, protected waters of the sanctuary, I realize I didn't lose my home. I reclaimed my dignity, and for the first time in 63 years, I am finally, truly at peace.